Are you seeing candidates decline your employment offers, or perhaps even joining your competitors? Maybe you're not seeing the quality of candidates you want to hire or the number of candidates. Maybe your recruitment process is too slow or constantly restarting. Maybe even relationships have broken down and there's a lot of finger pointing. Then maybe your issue is accountability. Accountability, being responsible for your actions, honouring your commitments. These days, we're all expected to be accountable in our jobs for our tasks we do, the people we manage, our responsibilities. But time and time again, I see accountability failing in a company's internal recruitment process because of two key reasons. Firstly, that it's not somebody's priority in their job. And secondly, there is confusion about both who is responsible for a task and when that task needs to be completed by. A recruitment process has, by its very nature, multiple stakeholders who are responsible for different tasks within that process. And as well as those stakeholders, you're also going to have influencers who influence the tasks within the process. Think about the flow of recruitment and how many different steps there is in the process. The early stages of the process, identifying the job need, writing the job description, and so on. Later on, how do you find those candidates? Where are they coming from? Who invites them in for interview? Later on, making that job offer, perhaps negotiating that job offer. And the final stage, contracts, onboarding, getting it ready for somebody to arrive on day one, even the first few days of their job. All part of the recruitment process. Each of these steps will have somebody responsible for it. They will have the skills, experience, and responsibilities for that step. It's likely there'll be more than one person who's going to be involved in each of the different steps. But it's highly unlikely the same person will be responsible for every single step in the recruitment process. For instance, step one, identifying that job need. The stakeholder is probably the line manager, the hiring manager, the person who has identified they need to have somebody new in the business, their team. But an influencer would actually probably be whoever signs off recruitment, the owner, the director, whoever. Or the difference between writing a job description and a job brief or a job advert. The two are very, very different skill sets. One requires understanding the mechanics of the job, the process of actually doing that role. The other is all about engagement with the individual you want to come. So it's much more about selling the job, selling the company, explaining the culture of the business. And the two require a different sort of person generally to prepare the two different documents. I've seen in many companies that they do not have one person accountable for recruitment, which means the process takes too long, or worst case, failure to recruit, and the whole process has to start again. This means really that the leadership team of that company needs to identify and correct that accountability in order to recruit the best possible people and therefore achieve the business objectives. So how should an organization change this? Well, let me give you 3 steps that you can take. Firstly, know your hiring metrics, your time to hire, your cost to hire, your sources of the best candidates. Secondly, perhaps the hardest step, get those hiring metrics into everybody's heads in the recruitment process, the stakeholders and the influencers, and make sure they understand how they influence those hiring metrics. It's difficult to implement, but it does get easier and it's well worth it. And the final step, make sure that those stakeholders and those influencers are communicating the timescales within their own steps, and if those timescales change, how that then flows down to others later in the process. Finally, accept that accountability in your recruitment process does take constant work, but the results are well worth it. Establishing expectations, responsibilities, and tasks for people for their key area delivers those results. Having regular feedback loops that you are checking in on will mean that you will identify problems quickly and ensure that your recruitment process is operating at an optimum level so that you do not lose that critical hire.